and I'm not entirely sure where we're streaming, so I'm going to try and find it, because now we're just live and no one knows where we are.
Even I don't.
Even she doesn't. How do I find... Like, I'm not going to stop, because that always gets me into trouble. Live... And adjusting settings... Cards... See, I'm live. I see that I'm live, but where is this video? Where the hell am I? I'm live, but where am... Broadcast alert? Oh, that's... Alright, so...
Wolfman maybe?
That's... Yes, Wolfman, you find it?
I found it. It's in the corner. If you go into the Oops and click that link, it's in the corner. A little. See that little red block box?
Oh, okay. Now we... Alright, so I've got a live stream. Sorry, guys, if you're watching this later. I see that I'm live. Where is this?
Oh, wait. Something. You're gone again.
Wait, hold on. I'm still alive.
You still have it? I've got Pokemon that's popped up now.
Alright, I'm going to Facebook. I'm going to post the link. Lies. I am live here now. Wolfman maybe. Alright, so I just posted it on... I just put ask away. So, in some fashion here, I am live and should be able to start the show, but I can't see anything. So, let's take it to...
This is. I think I got you again.
Yeah, you got me?
I think I have you.
I'm
typing away. I don't know how. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This is it.
All right. Okay. Oh. All right. To explain what just happened, Google and YouTube have split forces. And I was not aware of that until today, and I'm not entirely sure I'm doing this the way I should be doing it, but I think I've got a kind of thing working now. Hopefully you guys have found it. I've posted a few times. Yeah, so I'm streaming, hopefully live to you now. And I apologize because it was a lot of steps and a lot of difficulty getting this far. And I'm 23 minutes late from when I'm supposed to start. So if any of you are still with me, great. So to explain what this is, I've made a film called Plan 9. It was on a larger scale for me, and they asked me what my next film would be, and I said I would do a movie called House of Horror. I'd like to do a movie called House of Horrors, which was a monster mashup, Wolfman, Frankenstein, Dracula, Invisible Man, like kind of putting them all together like the old school movies. But to do that, I wanted to thoroughly research each individual monster so that there isn't a lot of favorites, that everybody gets kind of their due, and as well as seeing what other people have done in the past and trying to avoid that. So does it look like we're
on?
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Just make sure that this is all happening. So the first monster we did was Frankenstein's monster. We devoted like half a year to him. Then we did The Creature from the Black Lagoon, a.k.a. the Gill Man. Then we did Hyde. Not so much Jekyll, but the Hyde version. And now we're on to our fourth monster, the Wolfman, who at the beginning of all of this was, like before I got started, definitely was my favorite of the monsters. Frankenstein's monster being the least, but now it's kind of, well, probably Mummy is the least. But because of the research, it changes everything. All my perceptions of what the monsters were and what they were supposed to be at the beginning drastically changes as I do the research and really kind of understand where the whole thing is coming from. So, so yeah, we've got some questions that we're going to try to get to, and then I've only watched one movie thus far, which is the first Wolfman, the Universal film, and we'll get into that. But now on to a question.
Okay, these are the housekeeping. We've got two things
From
from
previous?
the last one. This was from Stephen Haar, and he was commenting, I think Burke and Hare are the grave robbers you mentioned when we were
Burke and Hare, yeah, you're right.
And then the other one, which goes right into Wolfman, is Jeff Haffer. Is Wolfman a reimagining of the werewolf legends, trying to show more of the human side and anguish of being half man, half monster? Are any of the werewolf movies borderline wolfy movies, borrowing ideas from the Wolfman?
Well, yeah, it's kind of complicated on the werewolf genre because there's no set rules to what they are and what they look like. There are, I mean, you have the death by silver in the heart, usually a silver bullet, and turning on the full moon, but even those change from time to time because the Wolfman is not actually based on a specific book or tale. It's kind of made up. Now, I've kind of broken it down a little bit in my head to the different kinds of werewolves that there are. Werewolves being my favorite monster. I've delved into that a little bit more. First, you have the guys who slowly turn into a wolf over time and then become a wolf completely. And all fours, they're not coming back. They're not exactly... Well, you don't really see like the bloodlust side of them that you get from the Wolfman. They're just becoming an animal. And they gain their abilities, and they're aggressive just like a wolf would be, but they're just becoming an animal. Then you also have the guys who turn from man into full wolf, which is also kind of the same thing, but they do turn back. They're just an aggressive animal. They're not good or evil, that kind of a thing. Then there's the hybrids, the werewolves, that stand on two legs but also kind of look like a dog. Now those get mixed up. Those can be hellhound, vicious creatures, or they can also just be animals. And then the Wolfman, from what I gather, is the most evil of the werewolves because it doesn't just kill to feed or react like an animal does. It just wants to murder, and they relate it to the devil quite often. In the 1941 version, it's a pentagram on his hand, or no, it's on other people's hands. When he sees a pentagram on their hand, he knows they're going to be a victim of him once he's turned, which is interesting because that gives it such another supernatural layer versus just turning into a wolf. He's in a way psychic to see this is coming. Now, I've seen the same thing done. There was a TV series called Werewolf in the 80s that the werewolf would have a pentagram on his hand, and it would start to bleed right before he was going to change. So I've seen that the pentagram moved in with it quite a bit and merged, but the Wolfman definitely seems to be the most nastiest of the creatures, just because he just loves to kill and murder everything that moves. Versus, like, you know, trying to feed or protect itself or anything like that, which we have gotten out of a lot of werewolf stories. But the Wolfman is definitely a nasty, nasty guy. Next question.
Ready, we have Kenneth Tabor.
Kenneth, hope you found me.
I think the Wolfman appeals to me more than any other because it is the idea of being a pure beast, no real thought or mind of their own, all instinct. Unlike Hyde, who personified the perverse nature of mankind, the Wolfman is the primal nature. What's your thoughts? And Mr. Pumas, of course.
And yeah, see the black cat always on the show.
Or is that? Oh, that's Big Ethel.
It's Big Ethel.
Big Ethel.
Yeah, I mean Hyde obviously is giving into his nature and trying to do all the things that he wanted to do as being normal, but couldn't do because of society or morals. Where Hyde is kind of a look at, what if you could just do anything that you wanted, and whether that becomes Neanderthal or childlike. One way or the other is kind of spoiled, is definitely a word I would use. Where the Wolfman is kind of the creature that you don't want to be, because he has no memory or conscience of your previous life. So he won't kill the people that you want him to kill, and he won't do the things that you want him to do. He's just literally a juggernaut of just anything that comes in his way. He just straight up murders. He's just like a tornado, and anybody who falls in his path kind of goes down that way. So it's a little different between Hyde and Wolfman. Now, there's in werewolf lore, some of the wolves are good because the people are good, but in the Wolfman lore that I've come across, it's pretty much just a tornado monster. Probably the most vicious, because Frankenstein obviously has to be provoked. Hyde needs something from you. Dracula maybe feeds on you. Wolfman, if he just sees you, he wants to kill you. Like, whether you're another werewolf, a woman, child, male, good guy, bad guy, doesn't matter. Sees you, wants you dead. So Wolfman so far is pretty damn nasty.
Okay, we have another question from Kenneth Tabor. The silver bullet is the Achilles heel of the Wolfman. In some stories, anything can kill the Wolfman. Your thoughts on the silver bullet?
I'm not entirely sure. I probably will learn this since I'm just starting on it. I'm not entirely sure where the lore of the silver comes from. And obviously, bullets are not too new, but they're pretty new in the last few hundred years, of a silver bullet being what kills a werewolf. But the werewolf lore goes way, way back. I think they choose silver as being the item that kills it just because of its purity. There isn't a lot of... I think silver doesn't mesh a whole lot with other alloys. Like, when you pick up a piece of silver, it's probably just a piece of silver. At least that's in theory. I'm going to know more. In the Wolfman, the Universal film, there's no bullet used at all. Like, I think he just gets beaten with a silver cane and he dies. They kept silver involved, but it definitely wasn't a bullet. And then I've seen other things where people have used silver swords and stabbed werewolves. And I even did a joking in Skeleton Key Zero. There's silver in film, like Take Pictures film. And he decapitates the Wolfman with it because there's silver in it. It actually causes the death. So it's definitely an interesting thing. But the Universal films have not given in to the bullet factor. I'm curious if they will at all. And because there wasn't that many sequels to the Wolfman. I think the only time Wolfman was in sequels was when he was in monster mashups. So yeah, I don't know where the silver comes from or where it originates, but it's a great, more urban lore, I would think. But definitely something that I would probably incorporate into my film just because of its, people just recognize, silver bullet kills werewolf or Wolfman.
Do you think it could have anything to do with, like, the moon is silvery, the silvery moon?
Oh, that's possible,
or, like,
too.
There could be something like that?
We'll probably find out. I'm going to look it up, but I mean, I think it's going to get to some kind of speculation because no one knows. There's no set thing of where it came from. It's just silver seems to be, because they don't say gold. Everybody wants gold, but gold doesn't kill anything, but silver does. And I'm not entirely sure, but it's definitely something that I'll be doing in my research, and I'll be reporting in it before the final show of this.
All right, this is a huge question from Jared Kearney.
A huge question from Jared Kearney.
Multiple parts.
Okay.
Question number 1. How strong are or should a Wolfman be? Say he is said to have the strength of 10 men, like Dracula, The average man can bench around 200 pounds. That means a wolfman could bench around 2,000 pounds, or about a small Honda car. However, there is no animal which is the approximate size of a wolfman that could bench a small Honda. Even a silverback gorilla or bear could not. Does that mean the muscles themselves are of a different nature than simply growing in size? No.
Like a density. Well, they actually, from what I have gathered so far, they don't really specifically say how strong a werewolf or wolfman is. Dracula, they say in the book, he's the strength of 10 men, which is a lot. Like 10 times your own strength is a ridiculous amount of strength. Now, granted, in the newer movies, they've made that even more, where he's taking out armies and whatnot. But the Wolfman seems to be like vampires are usually scared of the Wolfman. There's always, in a lot of the modern lore, it's like a werewolf bite will kill you, and they're just fast and vicious. But I think in a strength match, Dracula would be stronger than the Wolfman, but probably not as quick, I would imagine. Or as vicious in its attacks. Dracula would be more calculated and think about things, where the Wolfman, just whatever opening he finds, that's what he goes for. I don't know about his actual strength. I mean, my guess, and this is just starting, is that I don't think he's the same strength as, I think Dracula's stronger, but I don't know that for certain until we really get into it. Now, I know in some of the werewolf lores, werewolves are just as strong as vampires, and it's kind of a rival. Excuse me. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of exciting to, like, have some of these questions, like, where does silver come from? How strong is a werewolf? Because it's things that now I'll take with me into my studies, and I'll find out and report back.
All right. Jared Kearney's question number 2. How does the transformation takes place on the biological level? The wolfman grows hair where typical humans do not have hair follicles. Does this mean once he is bit, hair follicles begin to develop but remain dormant until the change? Or, once the change happens, do the hair follicles appear? Also, how is a bone reshaped? Clear the forehead bone changes, the femurs elongate, etc. However, bone is typically a fixed solid. Is there some kind of biological mechanism that sends calcium to the bones? If so, where does this calcium come from?
Well, yeah, I mean, the science of it, I mean, it obviously is very supernatural in regards. Now, the Wolfman is not quite the werewolf that changes size and height, and the Wolfman basically just beefs up. Its feet bend the other way, so that where our knees they invert usually, or some part of it, and I think that's for speed. I think primarily of a push forward. Yeah, I mean, I think especially with the Wolfman from the first film, it's a heavy supernatural element. But if I had to look at it in a scientific fact, it's obviously a very sped up process. But if you think about the caterpillar to the butterfly, it doesn't change completely, but it does a huge metamorphosis. And there's a few other creatures that cocoon themselves and then evolve very quickly, over a month or something, where obviously the Wolfman evolves in a matter of minutes to an hour, and then evolves back, or devolves at the turn. So it's a big supernatural thing. But the Wolfman himself, so far, hasn't changed too much physically. He just kind of beefs up, gets hairy, because obviously that's part of it, and then has the speed and endurance and strength and all that kind of stuff. So I think it just really weighs on the supernatural side of it, versus so far there's maybe in one of the movies that I get to, somebody will get into more of the science of it, but I think it's I mean, I've seen some of the Wolfman movies or werewolf movies where they the body grows from within. So the human body, he tears the human body off and the werewolf's underneath. And then when he changes back in, he's tearing his flesh off and the man is underneath. I've seen that a couple times. So the transformation, it would be interesting to see a little bit more of the science of it, but I don't know. I think it's, especially with the Wolfman and the pentagram, I think it's really leaning towards the supernatural metamorphosis versus a science metamorphosis. It's just something that grows and retracts, I guess.
Hey, Stephen Hart would like to know, does the Wolfman do it doggy style?
Probably all styles, I would imagine. I would think the Wolfman would definitely, I mean, it's not quite, it's still humanoid, it's not quite a dog, but I would imagine that most of the women are trying to run away. So if he catches one, they're probably not facing him. And there would commence the doggy style. I would imagine.
To me, it just seems like he would just rip everybody up. I don't think he reproduces at all.
It depends, because there's some werewolf movies that I've seen where they take it as a hide as well. But in the Wolfman Universal movie, he's not mating. He's just murdering. Hyde is the one that gets like a sexual appetite, where the Wolfman is really just a blood frenzy. But I have seen where they've made like the Hyde Wolfman hybrid, or kind of. But I would imagine, in the movie Wolf with Jack Nicholson, James Spader is going to force himself onto Michelle Pfeiffer, but he's halfway. He's not quite a full wolf yet. He's Wolfman, but he's kind of pulling on his human side, which made him do those or react the way that he did. So I would imagine, I would say yes, if that is the case, that there's enough human instinct. But and then again, the one thing that we haven't encountered, that I haven't encountered in a movie yet, is a wolfman and a wolf woman meeting, and what comes of that. Because if he's not seeing it as food, maybe that would be the next thing, is mating, and then. But you never know. Werewolves are obviously a very different thing, where they get into that, and they're not bloodlust. Where Wolfmen, so far from what I've seen, especially in the Universal movies, just a straight up blood frenzy monster. So I don't think mating is part of his agenda yet.
Hey, Jared Kearney's question number 3: how much of the man is left? Is he witness to the events like a passenger, or is he simply not aware at all?
So far, what I've seen from the Wolfman is that there's no memory of what's going on. Just because they kind of like follow it like clues, figuring out what he had done the night before by inklings of mud, like what window he came in, how he changed. Obviously, the Wolfman has healing factors, so like if he had a wound or something, it would be there but going away. So I would say, no memory. Not like Jekyll and Hyde, where Jekyll kind of knew what was happening. I think the Wolfman, so far in the stories I've seen, is just a blackout. They wake up and like, what happened? I have no idea what went on. So I don't think there's much of a memory, but maybe it's kind of like the Incredible Hulk, which was explained, I think, in issue 600. When Banner did not want to become the Hulk was dumber, because he was fighting it in the transformation. But when Banner wanted to become the Hulk out of anger, and he's siding with it, the Hulk was smarter. So the more that you fight the wolf, probably the less control you have. But if you are kind of an evil person as it is, and you're going to turn and you're excited about it, you might have more control over what goes on, because you're seeing eye to eye with the demon dog inside of you. It's a thing.
Okay, Jared's last question: why do you think the wolf has manifested in folklore more than any other animal, or as the one human let me start over. Why do you think the wolf has manifested in folklore more than any other animal as the one humans transform into, or partially into, as it were?
Well, I'm not entirely sure, but out of the big scary monsters that live in our real world, I think wolves are in more countries than lions or bears. That more like they had wolves in England, North America. They have coyote, jackals. There's always some form of wolf in every country. So versus like having lions here or bears in Africa. So that's my first guess is that they were just more available. They're around, but they're also pretty scary. Like if you come across a wolf, they're aggressive, and then also at the same time we have dogs, which come from wolves or the gray wolf, and we spend a lot of time and we get to know and see their lives, and they're obviously a tame version of wolf, but it's around us more in our conscious. Like here's a dog, dogs are wolves, wolves are everywhere. I think that's why it's chosen as much. Kind of also the same reason for like bats. I'm not sure there's too many countries that don't have bats, and the relation to the vampire. I mean, that's my guess, is that I think wolves are more common in most countries, and we have dogs that remind us of wolves all the time. So I think that's why people choose that animal versus any other animal. Because even lions and cats, I mean, like we all have cats everywhere, but it's not like you can go out in Detroit and get attacked by a lion. But it's still possible that you can go off into West Virginia and be attacked by a wolf. That can still happen to this day. That's my guess.
Okay, Stephen Har would like to know, if the Wolfman eats someone, does that make him a cannibal?
Yeah, kinda. I mean, it's interesting because obviously there are certain things like blood types and medicines that work on humans, and it has to be a different concoction to do the same thing to an animal, just because of the DNA, which is why, guy fucks a dog, dog's not going to birth a weird hybrid creature, Dr. Moreau thing. So what is interesting is that when the Wolfman changes, what's his DNA? Is it literally a mix of the two, or does his DNA completely animal, like his blood? Which I don't think is ever truly answered. But I would say the wolf eats a person, and it goes into the stomach, and he might, even if his DNA is completely, you don't digest all of that immediately. So the next day, you got human in your stomach, which makes you a cannibal. I mean, I'm guessing like...
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, we've got another from Stephen Hart. Is Dracula Wolfman's natural enemy or rival?
Well, no. I would think... I mean, it all depends. I don't think they're rivals. I mean, vampires and werewolves have been pitted against each other for a long time in different movies, and I think that's just because there's such a supernatural lore to each of them, and they can be in packs and groups, and it's fun to see, versus like, oh, it's a pack of mummies. Like, that's just doesn't work. Or a pack of Frankensteins or Frankenstein's monsters, because they're kind of individuals. Like there's usually just one mummy you're dealing with and one Frankenstein monster, where it could be a bunch of werewolves because they make other werewolves, and in the vampire lore they make other vampires, versus birthing them. They literally go through like a change where a bite can infect you and you become so on and so forth. So I don't know if they're natural enemies. Especially Dracula. I think vampires think more than wolves and would try to use them more for their benefit, but I don't know if they would fight. But the wolf, obviously, if it's a wolfman, is going to turn on anything that gets in its way. So it's literally just a rampaging typhoon that you just point in the right direction and hope for the best.
Okay, Kenneth Tabor. I think the Wolfman appeals to me more... Oh, wait, we just did that one. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Got distracted here. Kenneth Tabor. Anyway, the Wolfman series in the 80s was brilliant. Did you find any of those?
The Wolfman series in the 80s? Or the Werewolf series in the... I know the Werewolf series in the 80s. I have the whole thing. Is there a Wolfman series in the 80s? Because if there is, that's going on the list. I was unaware. Please elaborate. Are you talking about like the 1988 werewolf with the werewolf hunting the other werewolf that was a sailor? Because I love those, and I have the entire thing. In fact, my wife and I, the first we ever watched